Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we love taking these big, complicated topics and breaking them down so they make sense.
Absolutely.
And today we're going to be diving into the world of child development.
Yeah.
And we have this source, child development, theories, influences, and research.
Right.
That is going to help us get through this.
Yeah.
So imagine you're getting ready to give a presentation.
Okay.
Like a big presentation on what shapes kids,
Yeah.
little humans.
Yeah.
This deep dive is going to make you sound so smart.
Awesome.
And today we're going to be talking about things like why those really early years are even more important than you think.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about how resilience is more than just grit.
Right.
And also we'll dive into that whole nature versus nurture thing.
It's a big one.
Yes, it is.
A classic.
So get ready to have some aha moments.
I think we will.
For sure.
And this is such a fascinating topic because it's relevant for everybody, not just parents.
Exactly.
Not just teachers.
We were all children once.
Yeah.
And it can help us to understand ourselves and the world around us.
Totally. So let's just start with the basics. What is child development?
Okay.
Our source defines it as like this ongoing process of change.
Okay.
From conception.
Right.
Throughout life.
Throughout the lifespan.
It's not just the cute toddler years.
Yeah.
Right. It's really like the foundation.
The foundation.
For who we are.
It's true.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think of childhood as this separate phase.
Yeah.
But it's really the foundation for
It's
everything.
totally.
It really is.
So yeah, those early experiences.
Yes.
And relationships.
The
environment.
Yeah.
It impacts our physical, cognitive, social, emotional development through our whole life.
Absolutely.
So that's why this matters to everyone, right?
Yeah.
It helps us make good decisions as citizens.
Advocate for policies that support children and families. Even understand our own journeys better.
That's true. We can look back and kind of analyze why we are the way we are.
Totally.
It's pretty powerful.
It is. So the more we know, the better we can create a world that really helps every child thrive.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, I think.
Yeah.
So let's get into these 4 major influences that our source talks about.
Yeah.
So first up, health and well-being.
Okay.
And we're talking physical health, mental health, the whole thing. And here in Canada, our source points to some kind of worrying trends.
Yeah.
Like a decline in physical activity, increase in mental health issues in kids.
That's right.
And the source actually cites a study that found only 9% of Canadian kids and youth are getting enough physical activity.
That's so low. Yeah.
9%.
Like 60 minutes a day.
Yeah.
That's what's recommended.
Right.
That's pretty wild.
That's so low. I would not have guessed that.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
So it really shows how important it is to make kids' health and well-being a priority.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because investing in early childhood health.
Yes.
It's not just about right now, it's about the future.
It's about the future.
Right.
Totally.
So healthier kids.
Yes.
Healthier adults.
Yeah.
Which helps us all.
Absolutely.
Right, like a ripple effect.
A ripple effect.
Yeah, so those early interventions and supports can have a big impact later on.
A huge impact. Think about things like early interventions for developmental delays, access to health care, programs that promote healthy lifestyles.
Right.
These are all things that can set a kid on a good path.
A good path.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is parenting. Okay.
Which you'd think, okay, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But our source goes deeper.
Yeah, it does.
Than just saying parents are important.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging that parenting is complex.
It's so complex.
It is.
There's no one right way.
There is no one right way.
No.
And the source actually mentions an early childhood educator named Michelle Candelaria.
Okay.
Who talks about how important it is to connect with families in their different settings. So understanding their strengths, their needs, their challenges, instead of just saying, this is how you parent.
Right. It's about meeting people where they're at.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes a big difference because when you meet families where they're at, and consider their cultural values, provide them with the right resources, it empowers those parents to create a good environment for their kids.
So,
It's about Understanding.
Understanding.
And supporting.
Exactly.
That's a big theme.
Yeah, for sure. So, speaking of support,
yeah,
our third influence is education.
Mm.
And again, the source goes beyond just saying education is important.
Right.
It talks about some really interesting research.
Okay.
About using neuroscience.
In the classroom.
In the classroom, yeah.
Wow.
So tell me more about that.
Well, basically it's about how the brain learns best.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you can use that
Yeah.
to create the best learning environment
Right.
for kids.
Yeah.
So we all learn a little differently.
Mm.
And if you understand how the brain develops,
Yeah.
you can really help kids.
Yeah.
And one thing to keep in mind is neuroplasticity.
Okay.
So that's the brain's ability to change
Okay.
based on its experiences.
So it's not just throwing information at kids.
No, not at all. It's creating an experience. Right. Right. That actually helps them to learn.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, imagine,
Yeah.
Incorporating more hands-on activities, movement,
Yeah.
visual aids,
Right.
all those things
Yeah.
that really get different parts of the brain going.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my own learning experiences.
Yeah.
And I definitely did better when I was in a place that let me explore and was curious.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about more than just grades. It's about creating critical thinkers, problem solvers, people who want to learn forever,
Right. Totally.
So by using the brain's potential, we can really help them to be adaptable and be able to face any challenges.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Fourth influence, sociocultural contexts.
Okay.
So it sounds kind of like academic jargon, right?
It does.
But basically, it's all the stuff around a kid that impacts them.
Yeah, all the external factors.
Yes.
So things like family structure,
Right.
socioeconomic status, cultural background, resources in their community, even what time period they were born into. All those things shape their experiences and their opportunities.
So it's about recognizing that it's not just the individual.
Right.
Right.
It's not a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's about all the systems and structures around them.
And the systems aren't always fair.
That's true.
Right.
And the source points to Dr. Cindy Blackstock, who advocates for Indigenous children's rights in Canada.
Right.
And she's done a lot of work to address these inequalities.
So it's about the individual child, but also how society impacts them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And her work is important because it reminds us that we need to fix these systemic barriers so that all kids have the same chances.
Makes sense. So by understanding these sociocultural contexts, we can work towards a society that's more inclusive and just.
That values diversity.
Yes. And gives every kid a real shot.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about a word we hear all the time.
Yeah.
Resilience.
Right.
But our source wants us to think of it as more of a capacity.
Okay.
Not a personality trait.
Right. So it's not something you're just born with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not about being tough all the time.
No, not at all. It's about being able to bounce back from tough stuff.
Okay. So it's less about just like toughening up.
Yeah.
And more about having the tools to deal with those situations.
Exactly. And having the right support, too.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The source talks about some interesting things that can actually help build resilience.
Okay. Like what?
Well, strong family relationships are a big one.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Having a good connection with a teacher or a mentor can make a difference. And, of course, having access to good health care.
So if a kid has people they can rely on, they'll probably feel safer and more secure.
Exactly. And that can help them deal with stress.
Right, because it gives them that confidence to try new things.
Yes.
And overcome obstacles.
Absolutely. It helps them believe in themselves.
Now, our source also talks about this thing called differential susceptibility.
Oh, yeah. That's a fascinating one.
It is. What is that?
So it's basically the idea that some kids are more sensitive to their environment. And that means both the good and the bad stuff.
Interesting.
So some kids are kind of like sponges, they really soak up everything around them.
Oh, so they might be more affected by negative things.
Yeah, that's true. But they can also benefit more from the positive stuff.
So it's like they're wired to be more in tune with what's going on.
Exactly.
Which makes those early experiences even more important.
It really does. We need to create supportive environments for all kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to the classic debate.
Oh, yeah, the big one.
Nature versus nurture. And our source says it's not about choosing a side.
Right. It's not one or the other.
It's both.
It's both. It's about how they work together.
Okay, so it's nature, indeed nurture.
Exactly. And the source talks about neuroplasticity. Remember that.
The brain's ability to change.
Yes, based on experiences.
Right.
So it's showing how those experiences actually shape our biology.
So it's not just our genes that make us who we are.
Right.
Our experiences actually change our brains.
They do. It's pretty amazing.
That is wild. What are some examples of that?
Well, think about language development.
Okay.
A kid who hears a lot of words and has lots of conversations is going to have stronger connections in the parts of their brain that deal with language.
Okay, that makes sense.
But a kid who doesn't get those experiences might have weaker connections.
Wow, so that shows how our environment can physically change our brains.
It really does.
And it makes you think about how important early childhood education is.
It is.
And making sure kids have access to books and good conversations.
Those early experiences really build the foundation.
For everything.
Yeah, for learning social skills, well-being, all of it.
Okay, so we've talked about those big influences. Now let's get into the different theories of child development.
Okay.
Our source gives us a good overview.
Yeah.
But it also says we don't have to pick just one.
Right. It's about taking what works from each one.
An eclectic approach.
Exactly, because no single theory can explain everything about how kids develop.
Right. They each offer something valuable.
They do.
So let's start with the psychoanalytic theories.
Okay.
Like Freud and Erikson.
Yeah, they focused on those unconscious motivations and how important early experiences are.
Now, Freud's psychosexual stages are kind of controversial.
They are.
But they were really groundbreaking.
He was the first to really highlight the unconscious.
And how it affects our thoughts and feelings and actions.
Exactly. And he really emphasized those early childhood experiences.
Right, and how they shape our personality. And then there's Erikson.
Yeah. With the psychosocial stages.
Right, and those go throughout the whole lifespan.
They do, and he brought in social and cultural influences.
Which adds another layer.
It does. He believed that our interactions and the norms of our society play a big role in how we see ourselves.
So for him, it's not just about what happens when we're little.
No, it's about those ongoing influences.
Throughout our lives.
Exactly. His work still has a big impact on how we understand development.
Okay, so next we have the cognitive theories.
Okay.
With Piaget and Vygotsky.
Yeah, they focused on how kids actively learn.
By exploring and interacting with their environment.
Exactly.
Now, Piaget's work was really revolutionary.
He proposed those stages of cognitive development.
Right. Each one with a different way of understanding the world.
Yeah, his stages really helped us to understand how kids develop those cognitive abilities.
Like object permanence. And symbolic thinking. And abstract reasoning.
Exactly.
I remember learning about Piaget in college. That object permanence thing was so interesting.
It is the idea that even if a baby can't see something, they know it's still there.
Right.
Like they understand that things exist even when they're hidden.
Now, Vygotsky focused more on social interaction and culture.
Yeah, he really emphasized how important those things are for learning.
And he had that concept of the zone of proximal development.
Yeah, the sweet spot where kids can learn with a little help.
It's like that saying, it takes a village.
Yeah, he believed that kids learn best when they're interacting with others.
Especially people who are more skilled.
Exactly. They can observe and get support.
And then they can take on those new challenges.
Exactly. His work highlights the power of learning together.
Okay, and finally we have the behavioral and social cognitive theories.
Okay.
These focus on how kids learn through observation and experience.
Yeah, things like classical conditioning.
Right, where we connect different stimuli.
And operant conditioning.
Where we learn through rewards and punishment.
And of course, observational learning.
Where we learn by watching others.
Exactly.
So these theories say that we're not born with certain behaviors.
Right.
We learn them through our interactions with the world.
Exactly. And these theories have had a big impact on things like education.
And therapy.
Yeah.
Because they help us understand how to change behaviors.
Exactly. By understanding how behaviors are learned, we can figure out how to teach new skills.
Right.
And deal with problem behaviors.
And create environments that support healthy development.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting to see how all these theories look at things differently.
It is. They all offer unique perspectives.
And speaking of understanding child development, our source says research is key.
Yeah, it helps us move beyond just our own opinions.
Right, because research is based on evidence.
Exactly. By studying kids carefully, we can see what really influences their growth.
And our source talks about all sorts of research methods.
Yeah, there's observation where researchers watch and document how kids behave.
Right.
There are surveys where they use questionnaires, and case studies where they really focus on one person or a small group.
Right. And each method has its pros and cons.
It does.
But it's important to remember that any research with kids has to be ethical.
Absolutely.
Researchers need to get consent from parents.
Yes.
And protect the kids' privacy and make sure they're not being harmed.
Exactly. We have to put their well-being first.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Research is about more than just collecting data.
Right. It's about understanding real kids.
And how we can help them thrive.
Exactly.
It's important to remember that.
Yeah.
Right? Those ethical considerations.
Absolutely.
Wow, we covered so much today.
We did.
From those big influences on child development to those fascinating theories and the importance of ethical research.
Yeah.
It's clear that this field is always changing.
It is.
And there's always something new to learn.
There really is.
And remember what we said at the beginning.
Yeah.
Understanding child development isn't just for parents and educators.
Right? It's for everyone.
It helps us be better citizens.
Yes.
Advocate for policies that help children and families. And even understand ourselves better.
Absolutely. It's about realizing that when we support kids, we're investing in the future.
Right.
When we help kids grow and develop in a healthy way, everyone benefits.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into child development, I'm just in awe of how amazing this journey is.
It is.
From childhood to adulthood.
It's quite a journey.
It is. And I hope you all learned some new things today.
I hope so, too.
I know I did.
Me too.
And to leave you with something to think about.
Yes.
One last question from our expert.
Think back to your own childhood.
Yeah.
All those influences we talked about today, your relationships, the places you lived, the time period you grew up in.
Yeah.
How did all of that shape who you are today?